Once upon a rather drafty time, around the 40th century, finding love wasn't about swiping right, sending emojis, or awkwardly deciding where to meet for coffee. No, my dear listener, in a medieval world, romance was more like a well choreographed jousting match. Equal parts danger, passion, and carefully chaperoned anxiety. Welcome to Love, Lenses, and Lute Songs, a tale of affection, absurdity, and armor polishing, set in an age where the church ruled, castles loomed, and love was as much about survival as sentiment. Our story follows Lady Isolde of Hatherley, daughter of a modest baron, and Sir Rowan of Eldamere, a knight who spent more time shining his armor than winning hearts. They live in England around 1352, a time of knights, troubadours, and at least three kinds of plague. Let's begin. Lady Isolde sits in her solar, the bright upper room where noble women embroidered red psalters and quietly plotted their futures. She sighs, glancing out the narrow window slit, where the rain drizzles endlessly. Is this all life has to offer? She murmurs, spinning flax and dodging marriage proposals from the men who smell like horses. You see, love in the Middle Ages was complicated business. Marriage was rarely about passion, it was more about property, alliances, and sometimes sheep. But that didn't stop people from trying to fall in love anyway. Troubadours wrote songs of attainable maidens. Knights swore eternal devotions to women they barely knew. And peasants, well, they were too busy surviving to write poetry, but they certainly found creative uses of haylofts. One day, a message arrives to Lady Isolde. It's sealed with the green wax, the color of hope and foolishness. Her maid Agnes courtesies as she hands it over. A letter, my lady, from Sir Rowan of Eldamere. Isolde raises an eyebrow. Rowan, the one who tried to rhyme love with dove last May? The very same. She breaks the seal. The letter reads, My fairest lady Isolde, your beauty makes angels weep and poets despair. Might I be granted the honor of your favor at the upcoming tourney? I shall dedicate my lance to you, and only you. Yours eternally and rashly, Sir Rowan of Eldamere. Isolde laughed softly. He must be desperate, or concussed. Still, her heart warms. Maybe, just maybe, romance can bloom even among muddy boots and musty armor. Before we go further, a bit of history. In the medieval world, dating didn't exist the way we know it. There were rules, intricate, poetic, and slightly absurd, known as courtly love. Courtly love was invented by troubadours in southern France around 12th century. It was supposed to ennoble both lovers. The man would perform noble deeds to prove his worth, while the lady remained distant, virtuous, and utterly unattainable. It was like a romantic video game, except you had to compose a sonnet before each level. Sir Rowan knew the rules. He was not yet rich, nor particularly brave, but he could look solemn on a horse, which in that age was half the battle. He prepared for the grand tournament at Eldamere Hall. The banners flapped, the trumpets blared, and 100 knights lined up to bash one another in the name of love. Rowan's squire, young Tom, looked at him with doubt. Sir, are you sure you want to dedicate your lance to Lady Isolde? She known to favor poetry and subtlety. Rowan grinned. Then I'll hit my opponent subtly, but very, very hard. The stands are filled with nobles, peasants, and the occasional monk, pretending not to enjoy himself. Lady Isolde watches from her balcony seat, veiled and radiant, as the knights ride forth. The herald announces, Sir Rowan of Eldamere, champion of Lady Isolde of Heatherley. The crowd cheers, though some of that cheering may come from people who bet against him. Rowan lowers his lance. Across the field stands his opponent, Sir Bernard of Crickstone, built like a siege tower and twice as humorless. The signal is given, the horses charge. For one shining moment it looks glorious, banners snapping, sunlight of steel, hearts pounding. Then Rowan's lance splinters, Bernard's hits true, and our hero flies backward in a spectacularly unromantic arc. He lands in the mud with a thud that echoes all the way to France. The crowd gasps. Isolde covers her mouth, partly from concern, partly to hide her laughter. Later, bruised but conscious, Rowan is visited in his tent by a messenger. A token from Lady Isolde, the boy says, handing him a small embroidered favor, a ribbon stitched with silver thread. Rowan smiles through the pain. Then the fall was worth it. Over the next few months, the two exchange letters, long, flowery messages full of metaphors involving moons, roses, and occasionally turnips. This was the medieval version of texting, except every reply took 3 weeks and required a terrified courier dodging bandits. Isolde, clever and cautious, writes, My good sir, I admire your courage, though I question your balance. Perhaps next time I'm for a glory rather than the mud. Yours, in amusement, Isolde. Rowan responds, My lady, even the mud is sweet if it bears your reflection. Yours, eternally damp, Rowan. Meanwhile, the castle servants gossip endlessly. He writes her letters, they say. Oh yes, and she keeps them in a box beneath the embroidery. By the saints, imagine if her father finds out. Oh yes, the father. Baron Heatherley was not a fan of romance. He wanted Isolde married to a man of wealth, ideally one with fewer broken bones. When he hears of Rowan's courtship, he fumes, a landless knight. He will never afford her dowry or her laundry. But love, as always, finds ways around fathers. Not everyone had the luxury of love letters. Among peasants, dating was more practical. A shared glance at the market, a dance at harvest, a whispered promise, and a hayloft. The church, of course, tried to control everything, love included. They decreed that marriages had to be public, consent mutual, and cousins avoided, mostly. But many couples simply declared themselves married by word and bed, which was considered valid if somewhat scandalous. Back to our noble lovers. Isolde learns her father plans to marry her off to Lord Reginald, a widower twice her age and half as charming as a sack of turnips. She's horrified. Rowan, upon hearing the news, declares, Then I must win her through deed, not dowry. And so he embarks on a quest to rid the nearby villages of a band of thieves. It's less dragon-slaying heroics and more muddy chaos, but by the end he emerges victorious, bruised, battered, but with his reputation restored. When Rowan returns, he doesn't storm the castle. That would be rude. Instead, he plays by the rules of courtly love and slightly bends them. He rides to Heatherley Hall, kneels before the Baron and declares, "My lord, I have neither riches nor titles, but I bring honor, courage, and devotion to your daughter's name." The Baron eyes him. "You also bring mud onto my floor." Isolde, standing beside her father, speaks softly but firmly. "Father, I'd rather live with a knight of heart than a lord of coin." After much grumbling, a bribe to the priest, and a very lengthy dinner, the Baron relents. Their wedding is small but merry. A local minstrel sings an off-key ballad. Peasants cheer. Even the Baron cracks a smile. Once the dowry negotiations are complete. As the sun sets, Isolde looks at Rowan and says, "You know, in another life, maybe love will be easier." Rowan laughs. "Impossible. Then what would poets do for a living?" Thus ends our tale, a reminder that love in the Middle Ages wasn't so different from love today. Hopeful, foolish, and prone to falling off horses. Whether you lived in a castle or a cottage, love in medieval times was a daring act, part ritual, part rebellion. It defined rank, challenged power, and occasionally survived the mud. So, the next time someone complains about dating apps, remember, at least you don't need a tournament, a troubadour, and a priest just to send a message to your beloved. And so ends Love, Lenses, and Lute songs. May your own romances be little less dangerous and a lot cleaner.